the springtime and in the month of May. And if you ask her why she wore that ribbon, she wore it for her lover who was in the cavalry.
Oh, she wore it for her lover who was in the cavalry.
Here they come. You can hear the canteens and the swords. The winding as the soldiers ride in.
To learn more about my books, go to lowellbook.tateauthor.com, my website.
The hours said I left to me, the lingering farewell taking, whose sighs and tears my steps delayed. I thought her heart was breaking. In hurried words her name I pressed, I breathed the vows that bind me, and to my heart in anguish pressed the girl I left behind me.
Cavalry, oh, she wore it for her lover who was in the cavalry.
Her golden hair and ringlets fair, her eyes like diamonds shining, her slender waist, her heavenly face, that leaves my heart still pining. The guys above, oh, hear my prayers, for my beauty is fair to find me, and send me safely back again to the girl I left behind me.
Cavalry, oh, she wore it for her lover who was in the cavalry.
Oh, never shall I forget the night the stars were quite above me, and gently let their silvery light when first she vowed to love me. But now I'm bound to send and can't find heaven, and pray guide me, send me safely back again to the girl I left behind me.
Cavalry, oh, she wore it for her lover who was in the cavalry.
Then to the south we bore away to win a name in story, and there dawns the son of day, there dawned our son of glory. The place was firmly in my sight when in the host assigned me to share the glory of that place with girl I left behind me.
Cavalry, oh, she wore it for her lover who was in the cavalry.
The hope of final victory within my bosom burning is mingling with sweet thoughts of thee and of my one returning.
But should I never turn again, still with thy love I'll find thee. This honor's breath shall never stand, sweet girl I left behind me. Above a grave, she scattered yellow flowers. She brought them in December and in the month of May. And if you ask her why she brought those flowers, she brought them for her soldier who was in the cavalry. Cavalry, oh, she brought them for her soldier who was in the cavalry. Cavalry, oh, she brought them for her soldier who was in the cavalry.
let's see. We've been in the field for 3 months now, so
we've been starting to scratch. We have to procure some lunch here sometimes.
Yeah.
You get some shower.
I am William Smith of Virginia. I am Colonel of the 49th Regiment of Virginia Volunteer Infantry. I'm also a member of the Confederate States House of Representatives. My regiment is serving under General Early and his brigade. We have come up from Virginia. We just fought the Yankees down at Manassas and at Ox Hill, defeated them, as is becoming our habit. And we had the situation, though, what to do next. We couldn't remain where we were. That part of Virginia has no supplies. We couldn't move east because of the Yankee fortifications in Washington. If we went west, we would leave the Virginia open to the Yankees. If we moved south, the results of the campaign would have been nullified. So really the only logical move for General Lee would be to come up here to Maryland. We could gather supplies, and also the people of Virginia, there were a number who supported us, but last year, unfortunately, Mr. Lincoln arrested the legislatures, and they never had the chance to express their support for the Confederacy. So hopefully our presence here will encourage some of them to come forward. Maybe some of the men of Maryland will join our ranks, and we shall see what shall develop as we march here through the beautiful state of Maryland.
My name is Brigadier General Maxie Gregg. I'm a brigade commander under A.P. Hill. He's my division commander under the 2nd Corps Army of Northern Virginia, commanded by Thomas Stonewall Jackson. I currently am not on the field of battle at Sharpsburg. Right now I am at Harper's Ferry, where 2 days ago we captured the town of Harper's Ferry, along with about 30 cannon and over 12,000 Union troops. Right now, my brigade and A.P. Hill's division, we're in charge of prisoner exchange at Harper's Ferry, and just received word that we are to form our brigade and to march at a double quick 17 miles up the road to Sharpsburg, where we help reinforce the right side of the Confederate Army's line.
It is September 1862. I am Brigadier General Jubal Anderson Early, brigade commander the Army of Northern Virginia 2nd Corps under General Jackson. General Robert E. Lee, several weeks after the Battle of Second Manassas, had decided to move our army north and across the Potomac at Poolesville and areas in that direction, and move into this fair town of Frederick. And once we were here, we decided to go north into Pennsylvania. To do so, we realized that we must split our army in two, and we found out through the local newspapers that General McClellan had taken command of the Army of the Potomac again, and we knew that he was slow in moving his troops, so we took this opportunity to split our troops. Along with General Jackson and his corps, we moved up to the town of Boonesboro and then south into Martinsburg, and removed the Yankees from that area, and then swung south into Harper's Ferry and Bolivar Heights, and also succeeded in cleaning the Yankees out of that area. Once we were successful with that, General Lee gave us orders to move into a little town called Sharpsburg. It appeared as if General McClellan had somehow got our orders, number 191, that indicated to him that our army was in two. So it looks like a great battle was going to take place. When we got on the field, indeed, we knew a battle would be strong the next day. I was given the command of the far Confederate left at a little place called the Cornfield, the Miller's Farm, and there the next morning we fought a great battle. And as the battle went back and forth, we were successful in keeping the Federals from attacking our left.
I'm Stephen Mallory. I'm the Secretary of the Navy for the Confederate States of America, and I am from the great state of Florida. And as Secretary of the Navy, we've established 4 goals. We are going to build commerce raiders to assault the Union Merchant Marine, the development of ironclads for defensive purposes to protect our harbors and inlets, the development of new naval technology, which would be submarines, underwater mines, Davids, which are torpedo boats, and floating mines, and also to obtain by purchase or construction wooden armored ships. Now what we have here is we have a display of submarines. This is our submarine fleet. We have the first submarine, which is the Pioneer, which was the first in service, which the Navy deliberately destroyed so it would not fall into the hands of the Union Navy. And we also have the Hunley. We have a smaller version and a bigger version. The smaller version has George Dixon in front, who was the commander of the submarine. And the larger version shows its weapon. Its primary weapon was a spar torpedo, which it rammed into the side of the USS Housatonic on February 17, 1864. And also, we have here a U.S. ship, the Cairo. And the reason we have that ship is we consider it to be a Confederate trophy. It was the first Union ironclad to be destroyed by an underwater mine planted by the Confederate Navy in the Yazoo River on December 11, 1862. Admiral Porter had deployed 3 gunboats along with the Cairo up the Yazoo River, but his subordinates had told him the river was mined. He didn't believe them, and the mine set off and destroyed the ship. Also, we have 2 ironclads here that were part of our Navy. The Tennessee, which was the flagship of Admiral Buchanan at Mobile Bay, and also the CSS Atlanta. The Atlanta patrolled the waters around Savannah. It engaged 2 monitors in June of 1863 and was forced to run aground. The ship was then taken over by the Union Navy and became part of the blockade. And then, of course, at the end here we have the Virginia and the Monitor. The Virginia was the first ironclad in Confederate service. It encountered the Monitor on March 9, 1862, and it was the first time that 2 ironclads had fought each other, and they fought to a stalemate.
Good afternoon. I am Captain Stephen W. Carney. I am from the 15th Virginia Cavalry, Company H. We are what's known as a Partisan Ranger unit that's out of Prince William County, Virginia. We're irregular fighters. We aren't those who follow along the lines of the regular cavalry. Instead, we use different tactics and different kinds of weapons. You want to talk about it, First Sergeant?
I am the First Sergeant of the same unit. My name is Sam Dutter. We had a great tendency to use a great deal of pistols. Pistols and shorter firearms are a lot more useful and usable on horseback. Fighting on horseback, you don't want the awkward clumsiness of a long musket or a long shotgun to get in the way of actually being able to load and fire your firearms. So the tendency is to move to shorter and shorter firearms, and pistols, being the shortest of the ones out there, are the most handy. The captain carries a Colt. I carry a Remington.
This is what's known as the Colt 1860 Army. This was a very popular weapon actually for both sides during the Civil War. Union officers and Confederate officers often cherished having a Colt. There was a lot of supreme workmanship, and a lot of very good use came out of these types of pistols. However, my First Sergeant carries a Remington.
My firearm is a Remington. There are very few differences, in all honesty, of the actual mechanics of how they work. They're both 44 caliber. They both use approximately 20 to 25 grains of powder to propel the bullet. The main difference would be in the difference between the top strap. The Colt does not have a top strap, and the Remington does, which makes it a slightly stronger and more robust construction. Another thing that allows the pistols to do, to reload these pistols, you would have to, with a Colt, you'd have to go through the full loading manual of arms with powder and a ball and then a cap on the nipple back here. You'd have to tamp all the powder and ball down with the built-in loading lever. This could be very time consuming. They did streamline it slightly with the introduction of combustible powder or combustible paper cartridges. It's made out of a kind of cigarette rolling paper. They'd have the ball and the powder in the same all-in-one roll of paper. You'd stuff that down in there, push it down, and then the cap, when it set it off, would set the paper on fire, which would set the powder on fire, which would, fire the ball. It was further streamlined by the Remington design. To take the cylinder out of this pistol, you have to push this pin out and then pull the barrel off just to get the cylinder out. It was a time-consuming and kind of dangerous thing to do when you're being fired upon. The Remington, all you have to do is drop your loading lever, pull your cylinder pin, and you have the cylinder in your hand. If you carried extra loaded cylinders, it would be as easy as pulling your extra cylinder out, putting it in the frame, and returning the pistol to its previous state, and then you're ready to fire again. So you have probably 2 or 3 shots to every shot you can get out of a Colt, with a Remington revolver. I also carry in my boot, I kind of cross lines, I also am carrying a Colt Army. But my Colt Army has been modified. This is what would be called a belly gun. It's also a .44 caliber. For all intents and purposes, it's the exact same pistol as the one the captain carries, except the barrel has approximately 4 inches cut off of the end of it. This would be for very close fighting. The way that we fought, we were primarily horse thieves. We'd steal a whole lot of things that we would need to do. These were also popular with gamblers. So if you're in a very close situation where you need a firearm quickly, mine rides in my boot. This is a very handy pistol.
Now, the thing about the Partisan is partisans were trying to look into the best and most effective way of doing things. They found that by the time of the Civil War, a weapon such as a saber was actually very archaic, because with a saber, you only have a limited range of where you can get your opponent. Whereas our men actually did not carry these sabers except for very limited occasions. Instead, they would actually come prepared to fight with up to 6 to 8 pistols, either strapped on their belt or actually across the saddles. What they were famous for doing is, instead of reloading their pistols, they would empty one, put it back in the holster, draw another, and continue like that. They were famous for riding into the center of a Union supply depot, camp, causing as much mayhem as possible, and then they would get out of there as soon as possible. It was a lot of hit and run tactics. In fact, they called one of our commanding officers by the name of John Singleton Mosby. He was nicknamed the Ghost because of his ability to appear and then disappear back into the countryside like he was never there. So, we're being the 15th. We're actually based out of Prince William County, Virginia, which is actually where many battles during the Civil War took place within a 50-mile radius. So we're more or less, our unit is effectively farmers by day and soldiers by night. Our job was not to create a huge battle or a huge victory for the South. Instead, our job was to harass the enemy and cause them to take men from their front line to guard their supply depots. So,
something that has to be understood about the way that the North had to fight the war, most of the war was actually fought on Southern soil. So they had to have very long, we couldn't airdrop they couldn't airdrop supplies to their men because there weren't any planes. It was very difficult, it would have been very difficult for them to get it down there by ship. So they'd have to have very long roads with carriages or rail lines or something like that that would carry all of the food and clothing and ammunition and firearms that they would need to wage a war. So our unit's job would have been to disrupt that, because an army can't fight without food, an army can't fight without ammunition, an army can't fight without firearms. So our job was, we were a little bit more behind the scenes. We would try and soften the units up through hunger or lack of supplies so that the main infantry and the regular cavalry and the artillery could bust them up the rest of the way.
And thank you all for your time.